Saturday and happy Memorial
Day
Day
weekend.
weekend.
Yes,
It's the
let's.
weekend. It's not till Monday, but it's still the weekend. So
Yeah, it's the big kickoff holiday weekend here in North America. Here in the States, I should say. Canada, you already had yours. And this is the springtime, which obviously a lot of us are out running now because the weather's turned everywhere. And hopefully you're getting out for those races. As we say each week in the group, make sure you're posting pictures to motivate all of us, to inspire all of us, and to support you as you're training for your runs and your events and whatever else you're doing, right?
and we want to thank you guys who are posting those race photos, posting. Barbara's been a rock star about posting her things. So is Michael. These are all things. It's not bragging. It's not that we want to see these. It's that encouragement. Like I said, we want to, we don't, not a lot of us have cheerleaders in our lives, but
Yeah.
we need that, and if we can't do that for ourselves, that's great if you can be super self-motivated and all that, keep those positive thoughts all the time, but it doesn't help to have a little help from your friends too. So those are things that we want to encourage and want to, like I said, foster that community.
Yeah, as we've talked before, and we'll kind of weave this in, but this is the point of this group is to be a positive, like-minded, supportive group. We have enough craziness going on in the world right now.
Yes.
Who knows what the future holds, but we need to have community, and that's why we have this group. So,
and runners already do that. So it's just, we are one step, I tell you, we are one step ahead of the game. We have a passion, for running. It's great for us, but it levels the playing field.
Yep. Doesn't matter who you are, what age you are,
it's all
where
inclusive.
you come from. It does not matter, right? You just got to put some shoes on and start moving, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, today we're going to talk about some running form, right? Because
everybody wants better running form.
Yeah, exactly.
You look, I mentioned this morning, you see those runners, even just on a track, if you've gone out to parks and that, and I see people that pass me and I see them like, they're just gliding effortlessly, or they've got that, it looks like they have such that long stride, or their back leg kicks up, and you're like, wow, they just look so professional. They just look so like that's how a runner should look.
But we are all recreational runners, and we're not going to be at that level. That's okay, right? However, we should still focus on form where we can, because again, the goal of this is to try to stay injury resilient, right? We both have had some injuries recently, but we're coming back. My heel, plantar fasciitis issue is finally gone, and I'll talk more about that. But it was just
our biceps, not so much,
and her bicep is still struggling. But again, it all came from not doing the right things, which is what we talk about each week here. So anyway, excuse me, I'll clear my throat there a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and get into what we do each week here is we're going to share some slides. And let me move here. There we go.
All right.
Okay, cool.
All right.
So today, again, we're going to talk about running
form. Everyone wants better running form, but there are certain things that you can change. There's certain things that matter, and there's best practices that we all should be doing.
Yeah. So as we say each week, this is stuff that we're researching, we're passionate about, right? It's not medical advice. Always do your own research, give you guys some guidelines and stuff that works for us and that we've researched. We're both very passionate about doing research, doing stuff for ourselves, and then sharing that with you guys, right? And I put this one in here today. We want to start the day with positivity, which is holiday weekend. Every day should be that way, right?
Yeah.
So I said a minute ago, we have enough insanity going on in the world, so we need positive environment, right? And then today we're going to talk about these running forms. Real quick, from last week, we talked about the most important, overcoming those self-sabotaging behaviors, which we're all guilty of, right?
Absolutely. It happens to all of us, but when you can recognize them, know where they're coming from, you can mitigate them and get past that so you reach your goals.
Exactly. So what were they? Why does it happen? And then we gave you guys some strategies to stop doing that, right? So you got to believe in yourself. And again, when you're struggling, that's why we have this group, right? We want to make sure that you guys have that support. So today, we're going to talk about proper running form. Some stuff that we talk, you may have heard out there, you may have researched. Is heel striking bad? how important is your cadence? What should it be?
There's a lot of things out there that they throw around, and a lot of different philosophies about it. But science doesn't say much to a lot of it. Science doesn't prove that this is good, this is bad, and all that. So we're just going to kind of go through some of the things that that's going to be useful, that will actually benefit you, that they know.
Yeah, exactly. So again, we'll go into a little bit about your stride, how important that is, because again, we're recreational runners, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all guilty of not stretching enough and not strong. You're getting stronger in certain areas, which we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Do your shoes matter? There's so much the emphasis put on shoes nowadays. Now they do have a place, but we'll dig into, do they really, really matter when you're running? And then of course, your overall,
the things that matter,
the things that really matter, what you really should be focusing on. So that's what I kind of fly through today. Again, we always want to keep these relatively short, give you guys some
tips. I know you guys got some fun plans this weekend.
And hopefully you have time to spend time with family or friends with a barbecue or something. We have that planned this weekend, so we're excited about that.
Yes.
But in any event, running form is heel striking is not that bad.
Actually, it's not bad at all. And they have filmed marathoners, and 90% of the marathoners finishing the race towards the end part of the race, no matter what they started out doing, forefront, midfoot, ended with 90% of them heel striking. So it can't be that bad. The thing that is bad is overstrutting. And that is if you're overstrutting, you are going to heel strike. So that is when the heel strike is bad. When your foot is landing way out in front of your body, that means your knee is going to be straight. You can Google a video of what it looks like. It looks awkward, but a lot of people do that. It's the overstrutting that puts all that extra pressure on your knees. It can cause all kinds of ankle problems because you're absorbing that force out in front of your body instead of underneath you. So heel striking doesn't matter as long as you're landing underneath your center of gravity. But
you don't want your leg to be straight, which is again is going to relate to knee issues, IT band issues, foot and ankle issues.
Well, when you're running underneath you can't.
Yeah,
you can't. Your knee. You can heel strike, but you won't be able to have your leg straight. Obviously, it's only when you're overstriding when it's way out in front of you.
That was my point I was trying to make. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that is when the heel strike is going to affect you, is when it's way out in front. If you're heel striking, you can do it underneath. If you're landing underneath your center of gravity, then that is where it doesn't matter whether you're a midfoot, forefoot, as long as the absorption of that is coming from underneath you, because it's really hard to change some of these things. So knowing what is going to put the effort into actually changing, that's actually going to make a difference. Overstriding is something absolutely you need to correct. And if you're worried how where you're striking, what you do, or you simply have someone videotape you, because we all look a lot different than we think that we look like in our heads.
Cameras never lie.
And sadly. The camera never lies. But you can actually and then you can slow down that, and you can see exactly where your heel and where your foot lands. If you're a forefoot, where it is in that stance phase, or that the running phase, and see, like, oh wow, I am landing, I am heel striking it, and it is in front of me. Oh, my leg is straight. I don't even realize I'm doing that. So half the battle is actually knowing what's going on.
Right. That's the biggest issue. So again, if you don't have somebody to videotape you and you're running in an area where there's some windows or cars, just take a glance and see what you look like, right? That is going to be the eye opener for both of us. And we've done that. We've seen pictures of ourselves where I videotaped her, she's videotaped me. You're like, wow, I had no idea, right? Well, I thought I looked
a lot better than that.
Yeah, right. But again, don't beat yourself up, right? But it's important to see that, though.
Everybody is different.
Yeah.
And if you've done a marathon, you have seen people, all different kinds of, like, wow, how are they running like that? Your body will adapt to anything. So know that, whether it's efficiently or not, that's a different thing. But this is something that absolutely is going to, if you are doing it, you need to correct this, because this will lead to IT band, knee issues, all kinds of Achilles,
which is
foot
going to,
issues
which is
and
going to lead
stuff
to
like that.
injuries, which is going to lead to those injuries we all don't want, which is then going to stop you from running, which is what happened to me, right? So, but again, one of the things you want to focus on is your hamstring strength. We are all guilty of that, right? Because we're running, we're thinking, okay, I can do a few things here and there, but if your hamstrings are weak, it's going to.
And sitting can kind of.
Oh man.
Can kind of do that. We tend to be more quad dominant. If we're quad dominant, then the hamstrings are not as strong as what they can be. So focusing on those exercises that isolate the hamstrings is one of the ways to do that. And form drills are always super important.
Right. You can do something called the A skips.
A skips and the B skips. The B skips keep you, just Google those. It's you'll find a ton of different, like someone actually performing that, so you'll see it. But those things, doing power skips, having the strength in your feet, having the strength to pull that foot back. A lot of it is just strength in these certain areas. When we don't have enough strength to do that, that's our body compensates in a way that's not optimal for our running. So single leg hops, I've talked about those. Like I said, the power skips, you can do power jumps, the squat jumps. All of those things can kind of help to build kind of that strength. But take a look at how you're running to make sure you're not doing that, because that's something that absolutely will negatively affect your running.
Right. So again, heel strength is overall not bad, but overstriding is, right? And that leads to these other issues here. So how important is your cadence? Well, obviously it's very important, right? However,
the like 180 that's only because Jack Daniels, that book, he wrote about that because he watched a bunch of runners, and that was the common thing that they have. It's more like 170 to 190. You need to, but it's also based on your pace. Now, it's important to have, the faster cadence you have, the quicker feet that you have, the less the quicker turnover you have, the less, remember, it's 2 to 3 times impact on that ground. So the less contact you have with the ground, the better. So the faster your feet are.
And just to clarify, what do we do defining here on 170 to 190 means, just so people make sure we understand?
Steps per minute.
Steps per minute. Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure people understand.
Your Garmin will do this. You can use like a metrodome, but it'll your Garmin, you can use a metrodome. They actually have apps. There was an app.
Your apps.
There's an app for that. I can't remember the name of it.
So most of the time you're going to have your phone with you,
or you can count it yourself, but that's a little hard.
Worst case, count it yourself, right? But again, it'll give you something to focus on. But that's what you're trying to do, just to ground. Again, you want to, like Patty was saying, is you want to spend the less time on the ground as possible due to the force that running is doing, right?
But you have to put this into context. If you are running like a 12-minute mile, then this is not going to be you're not going to be able to have 180, 190 cadence. That's going to be impossible at these slower speeds. These speeds are pretty much anyone running 10 minutes a mile or lower to have these. If you're doing that, if you're doing slower paces, then that's going to adjust.
That number is going to be adjusted up, and that's okay, right?
But
that's okay.
Yeah, but if you are running a 9-minute mile, an 8-minute mile, 10-minute, if you're running those type of minutes per mile, and your cadence is 150 or 160, that is when to slowly try to increase it. You do by like 5 to 10%. You don't want to do anything too fast, as with anything. But that is something that will 100% benefit you with your running performance.
So again, if you're running a slower pace, it's okay. Just adjust those numbers a little bit, and that's okay, right? But that's the point there, is your cadence is important, right? Now, the other thing is really your stride width. So what do we mean by that? Is your knee valgus is one thing. That means when your knees are kind of touching, or you can see people that are kind of bent in, or as you're walking, sometimes your heels will click. I have this issue. My one heel, when I'm running, sometimes will click the back of my foot.
If you're tripping over your feet, yes.
Right. Well, I'm not tripping over my feet, but occasionally it'll glance.
You kind of hit that, or your knees kind of fall in, or whatever. That knee valgus is just it's just the turning in, knock knee, however you want it. It's the turning in because you don't have enough strength to keep them out. So that causes a whole host of pain. We know our IT band, you know, it attaches to our knee. A lot of our, you know, these muscles attach to our knee. If our knee is just a simple little joint that moves in a track, if that is being pulled from one side or the other, you're going to get knee pain.
Right. Your body's going to adjust, right? Which is going to lead to pain because you've got an imbalance someplace in your structure.
Yeah, it's just some weakness around, and there's simple glute. The glute medius is something that stabilizes. When we see weaknesses, this is another good reason why to videotape yourself or whatever, to see if your, you know, your hips need to be stable. A lot of times we assume that our hips are stable, but you don't see that unless you actually, you know, can watch yourself doing that. If one is, you know, the hip drop that they talk about, if you don't have really strong glutes, glute medius is the main one that really stabilizes your hips to keep you straight, to keep everything, you know, to keep those knees tracking the way they're supposed to be tracking. If there's a weakness in any of that part of that chain, that's what causes they tend to, you know, cave in, because you don't have enough the strength. These outside muscles aren't strong enough to keep it out. And I've actually noticed, I told you, you know, doing a pistol squat is one of my goals. It takes a lot, and I have a lot of strength, but having a lot of single leg strength down to the ground like that, I realized on one side my knee was going in, and I've never really noticed any of those things. So I am doing the abductor, you know, machine. If you've seen it at the gym,
yeah, it's the one you spread your legs out, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big part, like we were just talking about here. That is a weakness that we all are very common because we're sitting so much, right? And if you're weak there, it's going to lead you to these issues here, which is why Patty's focusing on some of that.
So a lot of times you don't really notice these things until you're doing certain type of exercise. If you're getting pain when you're doing squats, or you're getting pain when you're doing that, like I said, I never noticed that happening, that compensation happening, until I was actually doing that little, you know, of a strength myth that I was trying to do. So, but a lot of people, if you're having these issues, if they're caving in with anything that you're doing, strengthening that glute medius, strengthening the abductors, and foam rolling. If it's really tight, your inner thigh is really tight, you foam roll that. That can also cause your knee to come in. So these are all things. Sled pulls is what I've been doing to kind of correct that.
Right. So if you don't have access to a gym, there's a bunch of different things you can do. Right now, sled pulls is another thing. We actually have that at our gym. Right. You might be able to improvise that. So basically, you're walking backwards. You're pulling something. So even if you pull that backwards, maybe put some weight or something heavy you're trying to pull back. Right.
Backwards. I mean,
the key thing is pulling that backwards, and be careful, obviously.
Yeah, but those are things. Or you can do. You've seen people do the monster walks with banded. You just do that backwards. Have a really heavy resistance on that band, and that'll kind of mimic having that thing. But those are huge things. Obviously, the clamshell. I think every runner's heard about the clamshell. If that doesn't seem like it's too hard for you, lift your hip off the ground and then try to do it. That will make that exercise a lot harder.
Or like another version of that is you're lying on your side. Just raise your entire leg up. If you can't do that, then you know you've got weaker abductors.
Side planks.
Right?
Side planks. That's why side planks are huge for.
Exactly. And the secret weapon, all this is, if you're in tightness, you need a foam roll. We talk about this all the time, and that, quite frankly, became I've said it before, but I wasn't getting really deep into that with my issue, and then I finally did it, and now it went away. So, running shoes, how important really are shoes? And the answer is,
well,
not as much as you think.
there is no shoe that is going to change your biomechanics or orthotics. You should be running with shoes that are comfortable for you. Now, the carbon shoes, yes, they can make you faster. The elites have proven that they can make you faster because it's the energy return. That's when you hit that energy return. It's the technology is amazing. That's why they're like $250 to $300 for a shoe. But you can't use those all the time. They're very specific for certain things. And for your day-to-day running, you need a comfortable shoe.
Yeah.
But no, don't think that if I get a stability shoe, if I get a minimalist shoe or whatever, that's going to correct the imbalance biomechanics at all. It doesn't. Even orthotics don't.
Yeah.
There's no science to prove that. Do they help some? Yes. Is there anything that helps all of it? No.
Right. It comes down to the weaknesses and the imbalances in your body. It's going to relieve some pain. But like we say here, it's not going to correct the root issue, which is really what we're trying to get to here. So shoes are important, but not as much as you think is the bottom line.
Yeah. Comfortable shoes.
Comfortable shoes are
If,
key.
if the shoes are comfortable for you, those are the shoes you need to wear.
Right, because you're going to be
So
running. You don't want your
there's
feet
not-
hurting, right?
Changing those is not going to help your form, is not going to help anything. So that is something that they a lot of times they say shoes do so many different things when they don't. So
Yeah.
don't waste your money. But know that the
get
number
a
one
good pair,
thing, the number one thing is training errors.
Yeah, the number one thing is training errors.
Because your body will, it's about like we said in the marathon, you've seen people with some wonky, different gaits, crazy
I love
stuff
that.
going on.
Even a half marathon, I love it, right? You're
You
like,
know,
wow, good for these people.
It's like, how can you run like that? Your body, if you give it enough time, will make those adaptations to overcome that and have you run. So it's too much too fast too soon is what causes the injuries. Now, things to help you become more resilient and that you can actually help you perform better, be more efficient, have more economy, all those things that make running easier that we want to do, come to fixing these things, fixing your cadence, fixing your stance. Another way to fix, if you are really narrow and like I said, you click your heels, your shoes kind of rub against each other. Sometimes when you run, you probably have that narrow stance. Going to a track and having the white line running on
either side of the line.
On either side, because if you're not thinking about it, it's hard to do that. But that will actually visualize you and get you. And it might seem awkward at first, but if you practice that will help you get that wider stance. Strengthening these outside, the abdominals and the glute medius, doing these other exercises is going to strengthen that and help that whole thing, which is going to lead to stronger. You have to be a stronger runner. You have to strength train. You have to work on that glute strength, the hip strength, and all that.
Like for me, for example, what came down to not foam rolling, not stretching enough, and then my feet and my ankles got weak, which cascaded into all these other things. And it's typical. All these things are interconnected, right? Yeah. Starts with your feet. If all of these things have imbalances, it's going to lead to injuries. As we age, we become higher because we're not as active as we were younger. Mm-hmm. We're not doing these things unless we're conscious, which is why we're doing all this stuff for you guys here, right? But the point is we're trying to stay injury resilient so we can stay healthy and really just enjoy our day-to-day lives in general, right? So focus on these things. And again, there's some running drills, hill workouts. If you live in an area where you've got hills, you can do that too. I know it may seem daunting at the time, wherever you're at, but it's okay.
The easiest thing if you're not sure about the running drills, if you're not sure about any of these other things, hill workouts force you to have good form.
Yeah, exactly.
So if nothing else, they are hard. Know that you're gonna do it at a slower pace. That's okay.
That's okay.
But it will really not only provide you with the strength, but work on your form and kind of correct these things. So when in doubt, run some hills.
Try to find a hill, exactly. And if you don't live that, even find some bridges or overpasses. Obviously, you want to have
or on the treadmill.
On the treadmill is the bottom line. You see people that have these things. You go to the gym and they're like straight up and down. You're like, what the heck are they doing? But then they put it back down, and that's their version. You're challenging yourself. You're pushing yourself to step out of your comfort zone, which is going to build strength in the areas that you're weak, and that's really the point of that.
Absolutely.
So what really matters is, as we're running, is we have to stay upright, right? That's the one thing that we're all guilty of. Is maybe we got a bunch of stress going on in our lives. Our shoulders, we're all just tight, right? So we want to stay upright.
A lot of tension. So you don't want all that tension of you used to being like this all day long. You don't want your running to look like that. That is a hard thing. You need to up, down, put your shoulders back. You need to look forward, looking down,
eyes forward, and I'm guilty of that too. Obviously, you want to be careful.
People running all the time, and they're literally down like that. That is going to your head weighs a lot. Having it in front of you adds pounds to the stress of your upper body. So don't anything that adds stress, anything that adds that. impede your performance. So straightforward. When you're running in the middle of a run, pick your shoulders up and actively push them back down. They need to be down, not up by your ears. You need to have upright. Your diaphragm needs to be able to expand. You don't want to be crouching over because you're going to feel like you can't breathe because you're going to be compressing that area. Let your diaphragm give you those deep breaths. So these are things that are all will over time start to break down when we get tired and all that. You have to be mindful of that and realize these are all the things that are going to they're going to slow you down. They're going to make it feel worse. They're going to make it feel harder. They're going to do all these things that we don't want to have happen during a run.
Right, exactly. So yeah, like you just said, you loosen up your body as best you can. Keep your hands loose. I love this tip that Patty, we kind of came across, is try to elbow the person behind you, which is going to help with your cadence, right? So you got to use your shoulders back and forth where you can, right? That's the point of that. But
not in front of your body. Your hands should not come in front of your hips. You don't want to cross over your body.
Yeah, I was just
you need to be
trying to amplify that. But yeah, you really want to just be
pushing back.
Just like that. You can see my hands better because I'm taller, but you can just be like elbowing the person behind you in that regards, right? That's the key thing. Because it comes back to our daily lifestyle, right? You have to check your lifestyle. If we're in front of a computer too much, like we are, that creates an issue where then you're leaning forward, all these types of things, right? So you got to make sure you're looking forward, which is going to help with that strength on the parts of your body that have become weak. And so those are the key things that really.
You want that forward lean when you do run, but you don't want to be hunched forward.
Correct. There's a difference. There's a huge difference.
Leaning forward. It's like when you're learning how to ski, it's like your whole body needs to be that, lean just a little bit forward from your feet down. And you can practice that. Running hills is a thing that makes you practice that. Doing sled pushes makes you really practice that. That's another sled pulls and pushes, if you have access to one of those, are great things that strengthen all the things that we need as a runner. So it's a huge access. We're just lucky that this is the first time we've had access to one. So it's been super helpful.
Yeah. So really at the end of the day, that's what we want to kind of cover today. We're right at like 25 minutes. We want to make sure you guys have a great Saturday because you deserve it. You really do. It's a holiday weekend. We want to make sure that you go.
I forgot one exercise that I've started to do. I've told you if I only had one exercise to focus on would be, the Bulgarian split squat. But if you're having any issues with your form, any issues with your knee caving in, you're going to do that, the same stance as a Bulgarian split squat, but instead of squatting down, you're going to do a deadlift. So you're going to hinge down, really extend your butt back, your hips back, and not reach down, but bend down.
Yeah, we'll do another whole session on this. We're going to go through some of these exercises in deeper, because I know it's hard to describe these things. If we show you, it's a little bit easier to do. Yeah. So we'll do that here in a future video. But again, you guys have a great Saturday. You deserve it. We want to make sure that we never lose our love for running.
Happy Memorial Day weekend, you guys, to all. Like I said, this will be the first one. Without my dad. I told you guys he'd always joked about Memorial Days for veterans that have passed. And people would say Happy Memorial Day to him, and he'd be like, I'm not dead yet. and all that. And we always laughed about that. But this will be the first one we don't have with him. So remember, I know a lot of you have family members. My husband does too. Our parents, friends, and all that that are veterans that have passed away. So remember what the holiday is for too.
Right. So it kind of ties into all the insanity going on in the world right now, right? So we need to make sure we respect the people who have fought for our freedoms. That's what this entire weekend is about. Let's not forget it.
Fought and died for
it, I should say. Yeah. Yes. And it could be arguably one of the most important holidays of the year. So anyway, make it a great Saturday, you guys. Yes. Get out, enjoy the weather, get some runs in, and spend quality time with family and friends.
Absolutely.
And if you do go for a run, try to post some pictures.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you guys.